Get ready. Because on today's deep dive, we are talking all about how to ask someone to be your significant other.
Oh, exciting.
It is, right? And we've got this little snippet from an English language learning podcast.
Okay.
But you know what's really cool?
What?
Is how different cultures approach this whole, like, romantic relationship thing.
Yeah.
So get ready for some seriously interesting cultural insights.
Yes.
Because it's not just about the words.
Right.
It's about the whole meaning behind it all.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in this podcast, there's this guy
Uh-huh.
who is trying to turn a long friendship with Jennifer into something more.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right, like a classic will they, won't they.
Yeah.
So he plans this whole surprise date.
Oh, how sweet.
I know, right? Just the two of them.
Oh.
And he's finally decided, okay, this is the moment.
Okay.
I'm going to tell her how I feel.
Big moment.
Huge, right. And you know how he starts it off.
Oh.
He says, here's the thing.
Oh, I know that phrase.
Don't you? Like, that's the universal signal for,
Like, get ready.
yeah, something's coming.
Yeah, some important information is about to
Drop.
be revealed.
And in this case, it's relationship-changing information.
It really is. It's like, think about it. Have
Yeah.
you ever been on the receiving end of a, here's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
That totally changed the game for you.
Oh, countless times.
Yeah.
But so this guy, he goes on to explain that he can't take it anymore.
Oh.
He can't keep his feelings bottled up.
I feel that.
You know that feeling,
Oh, I think we've all been there.
haven't we?
Where it's just like,
Like something builds and builds.
I've got to let it
You
out.
just have to say it,
Yeah.
even if it's scary.
Exactly.
And then Jennifer's reaction.
Oh, tell me.
Oh, it's so good. She's like, are you serious?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so relatable.
Like a mix of disbelief
Yeah.
and curiosity
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even a little bit of like, is this a joke?
Yeah.
But it can also be excitement, you know?
Oh, definitely.
It
Definitely.
depends on how she said it, the tone.
Yeah. The tone is key.
Yeah.
But then he says, he's like, I never had the guts to tell you before.
Mhm.
But guts is such an interesting word choice.
It is, isn't it? Because
Nice.
it's got that like,
Double meaning.
yeah, yeah.
Like on the one hand, literal guts,
Right, your insides.
but it also means courage.
Bravery, like
Yeah.
taking a risk.
So it's like he's not just saying I was too chicken.
Right.
He's saying it was like
I was afraid.
vulnerable.
Like I was putting my heart on the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes you wonder if that was intentional, you know?
Right. Like, was he consciously choosing that word?
Yeah, to show just how deep his feelings run.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Like it adds a whole other layer to the conversation, doesn't it?
Definitely.
It's amazing how one word can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's what makes language so powerful.
So powerful. And then, he goes on to talk about how special their connection is.
Oh, how does he say that?
He wanted to have this date, just the two of us, all to ourselves.
Creating that intimacy.
Like he's creating this little bubble
Yeah, shutting out the world.
where it's just them
It's in them.
and their feelings.
Yeah, it's so sweet. Yeah, like he's really craving that
The
connection.
deep connection.
Yeah, to be understood,
Uh-huh.
really seen by another person.
And it leads to him finally saying, you know what? I want something more than just a friend.
Ooh, that's a big step because
Yeah.
it's like acknowledging that shift from
Mhm.
just friends
Yeah.
to something more. Yeah. Have you ever felt that?
Oh, definitely.
What shift in a relationship?
Like when
or-
things start to change.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Exciting and scary.
A little bit of both.
Right. Because it's like, where is this going?
Exactly.
And then he just lays it all out there. He's like, are you willing to give me a shot?
Oh, wow. He's brave,
Right.
putting his heart on the line.
Totally.
Because rejection is always a possibility.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
But that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
Like he's willing to risk it all.
But here's where the culture thing comes in.
Okay.
The English teachers in the podcast, they were saying
Yeah.
that actually formally asking, will you be my boyfriend, girlfriend?
Yeah.
That's actually kind of rare.
Really?
For adults, like in English-speaking cultures.
Huh. So how does it usually happen?
It's more like, it just
Informal.
happens.
Like organically?
Yeah,
So it's not like a defined moment.
Not so much, no.
But in other cultures,
Oh, yeah.
they're very explicit.
It's like a verbal contract almost.
Right, like we are officially together now.
Yeah.
Interesting how it differs.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess in English-speaking cultures, it's more like you just start hanging out more.
More texting, more dates,
Yeah, and then maybe you introduce each other to friends.
family.
Yeah, and it's like this unspoken,
Understanding.
Yeah, that you're kind of a thing now.
Like a gradual progression?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
yeah, like you're figuring out the steps together.
But that can be tricky, right?
How so?
Because what if you're reading the signals differently?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what if one person thinks, oh, we're totally a couple,
Right.
and the other person is like, oh, this is just casual?
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And that's where communication is key.
So important.
Like, even though it might be awkward
Yeah.
to have that what are we conversation.
It's better to be on the same page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even though this whole podcast snippet was about this one specific situation,
Yeah.
it really shows how we all want the same things, right?
I think so.
That connection.
Intimacy.
Yeah. And just to be understood.
By someone.
Yeah.
Regardless of how we express it.
This has been such a cool deep dive.
I agree.
Like, we've gone way beyond just the words.
It's about the human experience.
It is.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So for everyone listening, I want to know what you think. Like, if we're not always saying, will you be my,
Right.
how do you know when things have changed?
Yeah. What are the signs?
What are the signs? Like, in your own relationships, what's that unspoken language?
That tells you, oh, we're more than just friends now.
Yeah, we're a thing.
We're a thing.
Because it's so fascinating how different it can be for everyone,
Absolutely.
But I feel like this deep dive, it's shown us
What?
that there are these, like, universal truths about relationships.
Yeah, like that longing to connect,
Uh-huh.
to feel close to someone,
Yeah, and to find someone who really gets you.
and to be brave enough to say how you feel.
Oh, yeah, because that takes guts.
It really does. It's putting yourself out there,
Totally.
not knowing what the other person will say.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much we learned from just that one little podcast snippet.
It is, right?
Like, we went from grammar
Yeah.
to culture
Uh-huh.
to, like, the deepest parts of human connection.
It's all connected.
It really is.
Language,
That
relationship.
lumps together.
It's fascinating.
It is. It is. Well,
Yeah.
this has been another awesome deep dive. I always learn so much from chatting with you.
Same here. I always enjoy our conversations.
And for everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this journey into language and culture and relationships. And until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious. All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're taking a look at a transcript from English Pod, that language learning podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that one.
It's pretty good. And this episode in particular is all about how to describe people, like you would in real English conversations.
So not just like basic textbook stuff.
Exactly.
Cool.
So the transcript is set up as a blind date dialogue,
Oh, fun.
which, already gives us some really relatable context.
Definitely.
But here's the twist.
Oh.
The woman ends up describing the host's brother.
Oh, no.
So it gets a little awkward, but also kind of funny, right?
Yeah, that sounds like it would make for some good listening.
Totally. And speaking of good listening, let's jump into some of the key phrases from the takeaway language section.
Okay, sounds good.
The first one that caught my eye was, I heard. It's like, how we share information that's maybe a rumor or something we're not totally sure about.
Oh, yeah, like when you're gossiping with your friends or something.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, I'm not saying this is a fact, but,
Yeah, I heard you're going to that party this weekend.
Right.
Something like
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Now, fill me in. This one is more direct, like when you really want the details.
Okay, so like if you missed a meeting at work
Yeah,
and you need your colleague to get you up to speed.
exactly. Or like, fill me in on what happened at the party.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And finally, career path, which is about, someone's professional journey.
I feel like everyone's always talking about career paths these days.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in your early 30s, like David, the guy in the dialogue.
Right, yeah. People are really starting to think about those long-term goals.
Exactly. Totally.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now let's get into how David is actually described. The woman calls him good-looking.
Yeah, which I think is a much more natural way to say handsome.
I agree. Handsome sounds so formal.
Yeah, a bit stiff.
Right. Next up, height. She says he's quite tall, around 6'1". We know this is how Americans and Canadians usually do it, but does this translate directly in other parts of the world?
Not really. A lot of other countries use the metric system, so 6'1" would be about 185 centimeters.
Ah, so good to know if you're talking to someone from Europe or, well, anywhere else really.
Yeah.
She also mentions he's in his early 30s, which is pretty standard for talking about age ranges.
Right. You'll also hear mid-30s, late 30s. I like that.
Yeah, it's a good way to be general.
Mm-hmm.
Now get ready for this one. She says, he's hot.
Ooh, Ooh, spicy.
I know, right? Definitely slang for attractive, but I'm not sure I would use that in every situation. What do you think?
Yeah, you have to be careful with slang like that. Hot is definitely very informal, maybe even offensive in some contexts.
It's all about reading the room,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Okay, so we've covered some of the basic ways to describe someone's appearance, but what really stood out to me was her description of his eyes. The most beautiful, dark brown eyes. It made me think about how we can go beyond just listing physical features, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like instead of just blue eyes, maybe you say eyes that sparkle with mischief.
Ooh, I like that. Much more descriptive. What are some other examples?
Well, you could say someone has a warm smile or a confident stride.
I love that. It's like you're painting a picture with words.
Exactly. And sometimes those non-physical descriptions can be even more powerful. They give you a real sense of the person.
So we've got physical descriptions, we've got these more evocative descriptions. What else should people keep in mind when they're describing someone in English?
Well, I think it's important to remember that English is always changing. Like any language, new words pop up all the time, so don't be afraid to experiment a little.
That's such a good point. Language is a living thing, constantly evolving.
Exactly. So stay curious and keep learning.
I love that. It's a reminder that language learning is a lifelong journey.
It really is.
Speaking of journeys, I'm curious about this. We've talked about describing someone's appearance, their personality, but what about their impact on the world?
Oh, wow.
How would you describe someone's legacy, the mark they leave behind?
That is a deep question.
It is, right.
Yeah, it makes you think about the ripple effects of a person's actions.
Their contributions, their relationships. It's recognizing that every person, no matter how seemingly ordinary, has the potential to leave an extraordinary mark.
That's beautifully said.
So how do the words we choose shape our understanding of someone's legacy?
That's interesting. The words we use to describe someone's impact can inspire us or challenge us, maybe even move us.
Right. Language isn't just about communication. It's about shaping how we understand the world and our place in it.
Exactly. So it's about using words to paint a lasting portrait of a person's life, their contribution to humanity.
I love that. So as you go about your day, pay attention to the language you use, not just to describe people, but to describe their impact.
Yes, because the words you choose have the power to make a difference.
That's a powerful thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into describing people in English. We hope you've learned a thing or two and feel inspired to keep exploring the nuances of language. We'll be back soon with more, so until then, keep those conversations flowing.
See you next time.
Uh-huh.
It really makes you think about how much we can say about a person you know without even mentioning what they look like.
You know, it's funny you should mention that because I was just thinking about how many ways we have in English to describe someone's personality.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could say someone is witty or charismatic, thoughtful, or even like a bit quirky.
Right.
And none of those words have anything to do with their appearance.
That's true. And you know what I think is really interesting about these kinds of descriptions?
What's that?
I think they actually tell us more about the person who is doing the describing than the person they're talking about.
Oh, interesting.
Like, someone who really values humor might be more likely to call their friend hilarious or, quick-witted.
Right. Like our own personalities and values kind of filter into how we see other people.
Exactly.
And that's what I think makes language so cool.
Yeah,
It's like a window into how people think.
totally. And when you're learning a new language, you're not just learning words, right? You're
Yeah.
also learning about a whole different culture.
That's so true. It's like you're seeing the world through a new set of eyes.
Exactly.
So getting back to the transcript, I noticed that the woman also talks about David's style.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she says he dresses well and has a nice watch.
Okay.
Do you think those details matter when you're describing someone?
I think it depends.
Yeah.
Like, in a blind date situation, people are often trying to figure out if they're compatible.
Sure.
So someone's style can tell you a lot about their taste, maybe their social status,
Right.
even their values.
It's like those little details help us fill in the blanks and create a more complete picture of the person.
Exactly. And think about how much our own style choices say about us.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We might dress to impress or to fit in or to make a statement.
Right. Or just to be comfortable.
Right. It's all part of who we are.
So when you're learning English, it's not just about learning the words for clothes and stuff like that. It's also about understanding the culture behind it.
Absolutely. It's about figuring out what those style choices mean in different contexts.
I'm realizing that describing people in English is kind of like storytelling, isn't it?
I like that.
It's like you're using words to create a character.
And like any good storyteller, we can use different techniques to make our descriptions more interesting.
Right, like we can use similes and metaphors to create really vivid images.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just saying someone is tall, you could say they're as tall as a redwood tree.
Ooh, I like that.
Or instead of saying someone is happy, you could say they have a smile that could light up a room.
It's like you're bringing the person to life.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about another tricky thing. Describing someone's age.
Oh, yeah, that can be a tough one.
In the transcript, the woman just says that David is in his early 30s,
Right,
but there are so many other ways to talk about age in English.
there are,
And sometimes it's hard to know what's polite.
for sure.
Like in some cultures, it's actually rude to ask someone's age directly.
Right.
So you might have to use more indirect language.
Okay.
Like, how old do you think he looks? Or what age range would you put him in?
Those are good strategies.
And if you're not sure, it's always safer to overestimate than underestimate.
Yeah, better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly.
So going back to the blind date, do you think the woman's description of David is positive or negative?
That's a good question. I think she's definitely trying to present him in a good light.
Yeah.
She talks about his looks, his style, his successful career.
Right.
But as a language expert, it makes me wonder if she's being totally honest.
Oh, interesting.
Could she be exaggerating a little?
Maybe even embellishing.
Exactly. It's interesting how we use language to shape people's perceptions.
It's true. Even when we think we're being objective, there are always these subtle biases and influences.
Right. So even a simple conversation about a blind date can have these hidden layers of meaning.
It's like we have to read between the lines.
Yeah, it's like being a detective.
Trying to figure out what's really going on.
Exactly. And sometimes the most interesting clues are the things that are left unsaid.
Ooh, I like that. So to sum up, describing people in English is about more than just their physical traits.
It's about using language to create a whole picture of the person.
Their personality, their style, their impact on the world.
And it's a skill that takes practice, cultural awareness, and a good understanding of how language works.
It's like we're using words to tell a story, to paint a picture, to connect with people on a deeper level.
Beautifully said. Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about how to describe other people, but what about describing ourselves?
Oh, that's a good one.
How do the words we choose shape how we see ourselves and how others see us?
That's a really powerful question. It makes you think about how language can be a tool for self-discovery.
Exactly. It challenges us to be more mindful of the words we use,
Both to describe ourselves and others.
because those words can have a real impact.
So as you continue learning English, remember that language is more than just words.
It's a reflection of who we are.
How we see the world and how we connect with each other.
And the more you explore language, the richer your communication will become.
It's like we're always telling a story about ourselves, through the language we use.
That's true. And it reminds us that language isn't just about, communicating with other people. It's about understanding ourselves and understanding the world around us.
As we've been talking about this English Pod episode, I've been thinking that learning a new language is almost like
What?
learning to see the world in a whole new way.
I think that's a really good way to put it.
It opens up all these new perspectives.
New ways of thinking, new possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. And as you get better at English, you start to pick up on all these little nuances.
Oh, yeah.
Like how a single phrase can have so many different meanings.
Right. It all depends on the context,
The tone of voice.
even the culture of the speaker.
And those nuances, that's what makes language so interesting.
I agree. It's a journey of discovery.
And it's a journey we can all take together.
Absolutely, no matter where you are in your language learning.
Every conversation, every interaction is a chance to learn something new.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave you with a little challenge.
Okay.
Think about someone you admire, someone who's had a positive influence on your life.
Okay.
How would you describe them in English? What words would you use to really capture who they are, what they mean to you?
And remember, there's no right or wrong answer here.
That's the beauty of language, right?
Yeah, there's so many ways to express yourself, so be creative. Have fun with it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into describing people in English. We hope you learned a thing or two and feel inspired to keep exploring the power of language.
We'll see you next time.
Until then, keep those conversations flowing.